Ninjago's a show that's been going on for basically forever now, and across that timeline it's birthed about 16 to 17 full-fledged seasons. To people, some may be good and some may be bad, but in my opinion, one of the things that decides if a season is good or bad is the season's opening episode. Does it really pull you in or just bore the life out of you? And that is exactly what I'll be ranking in today's video, so without further ado, let's begin. Now to start off, I'm beginning with Ninjago's first pilot episode. Now, considering this was the first piece of Ninjago media ever released, I can see why some may say this was a good opening episode. It introduced us to the main four ninja as well as their backstories. And as a matter of fact, it also introduced their mission and who they were fighting against. And to me, this was a great opening episode, an introduction to Ninjago, and I can definitely see why they decided to make more. And so, to rank it, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Now, moving on to season 1, this opening episode portrays the ninja back at the monastery, relaxing and chilling, and then they suddenly get the call that Lord Garmadon is at Jamanukai village and vice versa. Now to me, I would certainly say it's not a bad opening episode, however it kind of feels a bit too raw and kind of pacey. Usually I'd like to see a season start off slow and affirm all the details. However, season 1 starts off with the ninja going to Jamanukai village already. By the time you'd have learnt their names, they're already going on a mission, which to me kind of feels a little fast paced, but yeah, that's just my opinion. I'd give this opening episode a score of 6 out of 10. Now, as for season 2, the season starts off a little more slow paced, which to me is already a bit better than season 1's opening episode. It doesn't rush too quickly into affirming the villain of the season, and it builds on it slowly, which honestly is great since I feel like it has the right pacing for an opening episode of Ninjago. It also affirms the storyline from season 1, which kind of seems obvious, but I would say this is what makes me like season 2's opening episode, and so for that I'd give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. Now moving on to season 3, this season in general was extremely fast paced, which did reluctantly make the first episode fast paced as well. However, I don't think it's as mid as season 1's opening, since the episode starts off slow by talking about the final battle in season 2 and then works its way up eventually and affirms the main villain of the season, who happened to be the Overlord. Now the reason this works is I'd like to think the fast pacing of the season gives you no time to question why the Overlord is back, and so yeah, you just basically go with the flow. Now by no means is this episode perfect. Sometimes I thought it was a little too fast paced considering this season was only 8 episodes. However, I think it's also pretty decent, and so yeah, for a final rating I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Now as for season 4, literally no questions asked. This is definitely a 10 out of 10 opening episode, if not an 11 out of 10 episode. This episode was literally the definition of perfection, literally. The season opens with Lloyd helping the ninja recover from the loss of Zane, as they seem to have strayed to their own paths. They then find out from some fortune cookies that Zane's actually alive. And now already, if you're watching this for the first time, you would probably be jumping up and down to the sound of this. But it doesn't end there, since we find out that there's literally an underground fighting tournament where other elemental masters are fighting, which was such a unique idea, and it still doesn't end there as well, since we find out that Garmadon had a history with Chen. The pacing was just right, and it took its time affirming all the details, and yeah, it paid off, since I'm giving this episode a 10 out of 10 rating. Now moving on to season 5, we also have another amazing opening episode. This time, the ninja are handing out flyers for Sensei Wu's tea business, when all of a sudden they return with no powers and question Wu onto why that had happened. Then suddenly they get a knock on the door from Moro, who had possessed Lloyd. Now already I can see this was a great opening episode, a slow and steady start and not rushing the season, as well as the fact that explains who Moro was and how he had managed to possess Lloyd. The ninja also seeming powerless against Moro also built up the hype for the season, since you'd probably think, well, how are we going to defeat him then? And so honestly, in my opinion, this opening episode was definitely a good one, judging by my community poll on that as well. And so for a final rating, I'm gonna give it a solid 9 out of 10. Now moving on to season 6, once again starting off slow, it might have been a little too slow in fact, but apart from that, I think it's pretty decent. The ninja was supposed to head to the city of Styx, but you know, things happened, and as a result of that, this guy came back. In my opinion, it's not bad, but it's definitely not as great as season 4 or 5's opening episode. It felt a little stale and didn't have that same reach as season 4 or 5, and so for a final rating, I'd give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. Now, as for season 7, this was one hell of a good opening episode. Although the season in turn wasn't that great, the opening was in fact what made it shine. We're introduced off the bat to Master Wu and an unknown foe facing off in the monastery ruins. For some moments it felt like Wu was winning, and then it came all crashing down again in the heat of the moment. The ninja then have to go and rescue Wu from his sudden death, and are left to wonder who the heck was that Wu was facing and why did he fight him alone. And so to give this a final rating, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10 for the fighting and choreography. It was literally just a masterpiece, honestly. Now speaking of masterpieces, do I even have to say anything for Ninjago Season 8's The Mask of Deception? This is undoubtedly, for me, the greatest opening episode for Ninjago of all time, hands down. It opens with Ninjago's new year being celebrated on the streets, while in the background you see a full-fledged heist going on at Borg Tower. Now already I'm hella hooked and interested, and this already beats most other opening episodes in literally like 3 minutes. Now, we also get the chase scene between Mr. E and Lloyd, and honestly that was probably the greatest chase scene in the whole show. And as you carry on in the episode, you're told about the mission of the Sons of Garmadon and what they're looking for, and you're also introduced to Ninjago's royal family, which not gonna lie was a bit but apart from that, we're also introduced to Harumi for the first time, who Lloyd instantly falls in love with. The episode also, as a matter of fact, ends on a cliffhanger, portraying Harumi being kidnapped. And so, for a final rating, I can't even go higher than 10, but I'm giving this 100 out of 10 for how good it was. I'd really recommend you guys to rewatch The Mask of Deception and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of it. Now, moving on to Season 9, its opening episode acts as a continuation from Season 8. It portrayed Ninjago City in a weak and collapsing state, while also portraying the ruthless dictator Garmadon at the top, ruling from above. This episode also portrayed the rest of the ninja and Wu, minus Lloyd and Nia, traverse the first realm and end up captured at the end. For a first episode, I think this was really solid. It was a very calm pace, as well as it displayed everything it needed to show. And so, for a final rating, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now, for Macho the Oni's opening episode, The Darkness Comes, I have mixed feelings about it. The start of the episode portrayed Lloyd at Garmadon's cell in Cryptarium, talking to him about the Bringers of Doom. However, the Bringers of Doom appear like 5 minutes later and manage to take over Ninjago that quickly, easier than the past 9 villains had tried. I know this season was 4 episodes, and that's one of the reasons the Oni take over that quick. However, having a villain take over in episode 1 is just way too quick for my liking, and gives you no time to think and theorize on who and what they might be and want. Now, I do like Macho the Oni, however, this first opening episode was just way too fast, and so for a final rating, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. If the season was longer, then I'd probably give it a high rating, but yeah, that's what I'd give it for now. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, I want to thank you guys so much for watching to the end. Please do let me know in the comments what your favourite opening episode from Ninjago's Pilots to Season 10 was. For me, it's Season 8 followed by 4 and then 5. Now, I will make a part 2 for Season 11 and onwards, since the episode time is cut to 11 minutes, so it makes it kind of hard to judge. However, yeah, please do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And yeah guys, thank you guys for watching, and see you lot next time.